Today's lecture is the TV Newsroom Jobs lecture. And there are a lot of videos and a lot of text in this lecture that I encourage you to read through because we won't have time to go through all of it. But at least this class, we can kind of walk through some of the most important pieces of information. We'll start with the most common newsroom job. So this list here is the average TV news station. It's not every single role, and it's not every single station, but most of the stations have some of the roles that we have in this lecture. So anchors, everybody knows what an anchor is because everybody sees them on air. So these are anchors. Here's Melanie Michael, here's Rod Carter. Melanie, you guys met already. Rod, if you come on Saturday, you'll get to meet Rod. In this case, they are anchoring. They're on the desk in a studio anchoring. But you might also see them reporting in the field. So it's important for you to understand the difference. If you apply for an anchor job, that means that you're going to be in a studio reading off a teleprompter for the entire newscast, many times, several newscasts in a row, inside the studio. As opposed to when you're a reporter, you go out to gather the stories, and you generally work on one or just a couple of stories a day, whereas an anchor is going to be reading 50, 100, 200 stories a day. So it's just a different lifestyle. Anchors are inside. They're the ones who get the most airtime because they read all the stories. Even if you are also a reporter, when you're on the set like this, you're anchoring. You're an anchor. So Rod Carter is fantastic. Here's a link to his social media. Please take a minute to follow him. He's absolutely wonderful. He was my anchor when I was producing, and just one of the best anchors I've ever worked with. He's a really good role model for you guys to look up to and learn from. If you want to do anything with TV, you should know who Rod Carter is. And he's just a good person who wants to help you guys get jobs and internships. So take a minute to do that. I do encourage you to log on or follow along with your phone. So as we go through, you can just click each of these people that we're going to talk about and go ahead and follow them, friend them, like them, whatever platform you use. We don't have time to watch this, but this is a documentary that a couple of my former students made about Rod. So like a day in the life of Rod Carter. So take a minute later today and just watch this if you're interested in seeing what his life is like. If you want to be an anchor, here are 3 fantastic free resources for you guys to practice reading off a teleprompter. Reading off a teleprompter is harder than it looks. So some of you guys experienced that when we went to the Florida Focus class, and it takes practice. So like with anything, if you want to be an anchor, you have to practice. And I encourage you to put all of the scripts that you write for this class into one of these things, and it'll just be like a teleprompter. One of them is a teleprompter for your phone. Another 2 of them are like teleprompters on your computer, and they're just free. You paste your script in there, you practice reading off a teleprompter, and you will get better. If you do that for every project in this class, by the end of the semester, you will have improved. And even if you don't want to be the anchor, it's good to know what an anchor feels like so that you can be a better reporter or producer. You can be a better writer, you can be a better director, because you need to understand what it feels like just to read off a teleprompter to work in TV news. The next role that we're going to look at is a reporter. So generally you see reporters outside at the scene. They have to focus on generally more than one, but let's say one story that day. So they come into the morning meeting, the anchors are there, the producers are there. Once the reporter pitches the story they want to do for the day, then they generally leave. They go interview people, they go do research. If they're an MMJ, then they'll also shoot a lot of video too, or they'll work with a photographer to gather all of the video, write the story, edit. So you focus a lot of time on your packages and on your live shots, whereas an anchor will be mostly inside most of the day, learning about everything that's happening around you so that in case the teleprompter fails, you know how to ad-lib on different stories. Do you have a question?
The anchor job usually goes for those people who have the most priority, basically, the most seniority, basically, once they probably get up there in age, the older they no, I don't want to be doing the whole reporting thing. I don't want to be chasing things. I want to sit. Is that
generally, yes. Yeah, anchors generally get paid a lot more, and they're usually more experienced, and they've usually been reporters first. So not every reporter wants to be an anchor, but it is a more comfortable life generally. You don't get rained on. You don't have to be in the hurricane. You don't have to be, in the snow. It's generally more comfortable, but it's just it's up to every individual. Some people really love reporting and they don't want to sit inside and read nonstop all day long. But people like it for different reasons, and it's going to be good at both. But you're right. You generally don't get an anchor job right out of college. You would usually become an MMJ, a reporter first, and then it takes some time to work your way up to being an anchor. And most of the time, if you're starting out, an anchor would start on like an overnight weekend show. So you'd be anchoring the 6 a.m. Saturday, like the Saturday morning show first. And then you'd work your way up into the higher priority shows that are generally based off of how many viewers they get. So the big shows like the 11 p.m. weekly show, Sunday night, like the 11 p.m. Sunday night show generally also gets a lot of ratings because people watch TV on Sunday nights. That's a big TV night. But so you have to be experienced to get some of those bigger anchor roles. So there's a lot of different types of reporters. One type of reporter that's like a real journalist, like a really, really fantastic job to have if you were like, you want to be an investigative reporter. Steve Andrews is a fantastic journalist. I encourage you to follow. There's his information there. He has won so many awards, recognized around the world for being a fantastic investigative reporter. And I worked with him at Channel 8, and I asked him just to take a few minutes to like tell you guys what he thinks that you should know about being an investigative reporter or being any type of reporter for that matter. But basically what he does is he investigates like wide-scale corruption. He makes sure that that the government is working the way it should, that the politicians aren't lying and stealing, that businesses aren't ripping people off. You need investigative reporters for your society to function because otherwise it's very hard to hold people accountable. So this is kind of what he has to say for you guys about what his job is like and what you should know about reporting.
My name is Steve Andrews, and I'm an investigative reporter at WFLA News Channel 8. My job is to tell good stories, and that's the job of every reporter, to tell good stories. And it's the job of every reporter to do investigative stories. Now, how do you go about doing investigative stories? You have to kind of find out how things work first. I look and I listen. I look at emails. I look at mail and letters that come through the U.S. Postal Service. I listen to voicemails. I listen to phone calls. I listen to people who stop me on the street and say, this isn't working right. This should be this way and not that way. And how do you find that out? Well, if you have a complaint against government, you find out how government is supposed to be working, how this agency works, what the rules and regulations are. If you have a complaint that they're not following those rules and regulations and you can confirm it, then you've got an investigative story. Same thing with business. If business puts something in writing and doesn't honor it, chances are you have a story there as well. Someone had called me last week or wrote me an email and said they were upset that I was doing a story about dead voters or dead people still being able to vote. They said it's the role of the media to soothe and allay the fears of our society. And that's so wrong. That's not the role of the media. The role of the media is to question. Always question.
It's great advice from Steve Andrews. Please watch his packages. Take a look at how he writes. He's a fantastic writer. Be inspired by his work. He is an expert at this, and he's right here in the Tampa Bay community, and he loves to help students succeed. So please make sure that you're following him on Facebook, on Twitter, reading his things. It's important just to know who he is. So even if you get a job across the country and you say that you went to school in Tampa, they might ask you about somebody like a Steve Andrews just because he's a big deal. And he's a big deal because he's really great at what he does. This is also another video that we won't have time to watch today, but go ahead and take a look at this. Some students in Travis Bell's class made this for their EFP class in 2014. So it's a little bit old, but not really. I mean, this is basically like the life of a TV reporter. They did it for one of their projects, and I thought it would be helpful for you to see like the day of a reporter at a local station too. So this is shot at WFLA as well. So there are a lot of different types of reporters, and a new more common type of reporting that you might be doing as you start getting jobs nowadays is something that Samuel Burke does really, really well, which is engaging social media, active stand-ups. He does so much fun news coverage, and he's fantastic. You see him on SNN, or excuse me, HSN, HLN. Wow, my brain is not working today. He's on HLN, he's on CNN, and he's all over the world. He's bilingual, so he could do reports in Spanish. He's worked out of London, out of New York, out of everywhere. And so he's a great success, and he's still pretty young. So I want to show you two of the packages that he does so that you guys can get inspired on like story ideas. So like what kind of stories can you think of that would be fun and engaging? Sometimes it's hard to be like, how do I become an investigative reporter if I'm still in college? You can do that, but maybe this is an easier way to get started because it's something that you could just go and do, and it's fun, and it's something that people will share. So if this is kind of more your style, let's take a look at Samuel's work, and I encourage you also to follow him and keep on looking at his things to get inspired on how to be engaging and entertaining.
My next live streaming event is on Facebook as I go indoor skydiving. Even though I have 100,000 more followers on Twitter, my Facebook followers are watching this live stream way more. Excelente, bravo, I believe I can fly. And they're much more engaged.
People are watching more and more video really every month on Facebook, so they're spending more time on the platform. So more likely that they're going to see you, see that you're live streaming, and they're going to want to engage it.
YouTube is supposed to be the top dog for internet video. They have a live streaming platform, but it lags way behind Twitter's or Facebook's. They only allow you to use Samsung phones. Other companies might be waiting in the wings, like Snapchat, but the real breakthrough may come with celebrity live streaming.
The number of people who are watching live stream is going to move very quickly into the millions. Anytime somebody of notoriety or fame does a live stream. If Kim Kardashian said she was going to do a live stream on Facebook tomorrow, it would have 10 million or 20 million viewers.
As my high-flying adventures prove, the sky may be the limit for the winners of the live streaming wars. Samuel Burke, CNN Money, New York.
Okay, so let's watch another example.
My next live streaming event.
Let's watch another example, and then really think about like, how did he shoot this? How did he plan for this? How did he edit it? And how can you do the similar things if you have stories like this? So here's just another one. Like we talked about that in one of the last classes about just thinking about bringing a waterproof camera, which you can rent for free at the library, can make a package so much more engaging, especially if your topic is something like Samsung's waterproof phones. So here's another version of a package that he did that I hope inspires you guys a little bit.
Samsung is the #1 smartphone maker in the world. Yep, they sell more phones than Apple. Now Samsung is hoping to make a splash with the latest versions of their flagship Galaxy phones, the S7 and the S7 Edge. Samsung says these latest models can last 30 minutes in up to 5 feet of water, and live to talk about it. We came to Chelsea Piers in Connecticut to see just how wet they could get. Samsung's been losing ground, especially to Chinese smartphone makers like Huawei, Xiaomi, and Lenovo with their less expensive phones. Apple's the company with a reputation for pricey products, but the S7 will cost you $670. The Edge $780, slightly more expensive than the iPhones. Huh? Can you hear me now? Critics say one of the reasons Samsung lost market share with the last generation of these phones is that while the look and feel improved, it came at a cost. Battery life actually got worse, and they removed the ability to add more memory. Now extra memory is back, and battery life has improved more than 15% on the S7 and almost 30% on the Edge. And even though the limit is 5 feet, I'm going to push it past 7. Well, I was in the water a long time and the boat is still working, but to stay competitive, Samsung is trying to make all these phones more similar to cut costs, and they're going to release these phones more frequently to try and get you to upgrade more often. But with all that competition from China and even Apple forecasting revenue declines, Samsung faces tough waters ahead.
What do you guys think of Samuel Burke? Yes.
I think that was a great way to tell a story. And you did it in a full, like you wanted to basically like prove the point of how like it's so like water resistant and stuff like that. So I think that was a great way to get his point across.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
I like him because it seems like he really enjoys his job.
Yeah.
He really, really likes.
Well, TV is fun, guys. You can have a lot of fun in it. Yeah, and when you show that you're having fun at your job, it makes viewers feel like it's fun to watch, which is important. Anytime you have an opportunity to do that, go for it. And I kind of refreshed this real quick because I wanted to show you. So I've been tweeting them this morning because I have another class earlier, right before this one. And I just sent a quick tweet to a couple of the people we're looking at in this class today. And I tagged him just this morning. Hey, watching Samuel Burke packages in my broadcast news class to inspire students to be creative reporters. And he already replied. He liked my tweet and he wrote back already. That's about as big of an honor as broadcaster could hope for. Come visit our studios. Like, he just did that. So you guys should also don't feel like these people are so far away you could never talk to them. Like, what a super nice guy, right? Engage with people on social media. That is such a fantastic tool to have that I never had when I was like way younger. I mean, social media is still pretty new, so I couldn't just connect with any reporter or anchor or producer that I wanted to. And now it's so easy that literally in the last class, I tweeted that and he's already responded. So please take advantage of social media to connect with people like this. And he's one of the people who I don't even know in person. Like, I just like him and respect him. The other people who I included that you can go back and just go onto my Twitter feed if it's easier for you. Just click them and then follow them. Like I tweeted earlier about Dan, who we're going to look at here in a second, Joe Little, and he's already been chatting with me all morning long. And this was literally just within the past hour. And these are people who I've actually worked with, so I can help you get jobs with them and kind of network with them. But please use social media because, look, it's effective. Like, just a little experiment. That's just within the past hour. So the good thing about TV news reporters is that they are very active on social media. So use that to your advantage. Joe Little, who I just showed a tweet about, I was really privileged to work with him at San Diego at an ABC affiliate, and he's one of the people who's just known around the whole country as being one of the best MMJs. He gives speeches about how to be a good MMJ, how to be a good reporter, and he made this video just a couple of years ago about what your life might be like if you become a reporter. And he's one of like the original MMJs. Remember the last lecture we talked about MMJ is the same thing as one-man band, is the same thing as backpack journalist, is the same thing as all of these key terms that might pop up in your job description.
And then one more thing that I just thought about the video. Remember how you see my video and like I was moving and stuff? When he was swimming, he actually had the camera steady instead of having the camera follow him. He was just seeing action. So that's just something that I just noticed when he did a mistake that I made.
That's a great catch. Yeah, if you can let the action unfold in front of the camera instead of moving it around. Perfect. That's a really good catch. And so I hope that when you watch these, not just for informational purposes, but that you also look at their way they shoot it and then help you kind of analyze like, oh, that was a really good shot because they framed it this way, they didn't move it, they did this. So I do hope that as we watch these, that you have the same experience. So I appreciate you sharing that because that's how you get better. Like, actively watching these things will just make you better at a job that, if you try to pursue one day, I mean, the better you are now, the easier you'll get that job right out of school. So you guys still have lots of time left before you should be applying for these things. So use the projects we do in this class to start building up your work examples and just getting more experience and stuff like that. So this is a video from Joe Little, who will just show you, like, if you do end up becoming an MMJ, what will your day be like?
I'm 10 news reporter Joe Little. For the past 3 years, I've worked here at KGTV in San Diego as a digital correspondent, DC for short. You may call me a video journalist or a backpack reporter, but the bottom line is I'm a one-man band. I'm a reporter and photographer. I research, write, shoot, edit, and report stories for broadcast. A lot of reporters got their feet wet as one-man bands right out of college. I started in 1999 in Hagerstown, Maryland. Fortunately for me, I kept up my shooting and editing skills as I moved to Pennsylvania and eventually California. During that time, technology has changed. The cameras have gotten smaller, and the editing equipment has gone from this to this. The compactness of everything allows me to move quickly and efficiently. My day starts out just like any other reporter's day. I read the news, call sources, check leads, and attend a morning meeting where stories are assigned. Once I get my assignment, I do some research, set up interviews, and go. Only difference is I go by myself. I shoot all the interviews, I get all of my own B-roll, I even shoot my own stand-ups. Once I'm done gathering my elements, I edit at the station or in my car. Either way, I can write and edit quickly and compactly. I dump my video directly into the same laptop I'll write my story on. I log sound bites, write a script, track my audio, and edit my video. If I'm not at the station, I have to get my package back. I can feed it through a live truck, or I can feed it directly from my laptop to the station by loading it up to an FTP site using a cell card. This feature is great because I can feed from anywhere or save the photographer time while he's setting up a live shot. A minute and a half package takes about 20 minutes to send, but technology will only speed that up in the future.
Once my package is in, I'm ready for my live shot.
The biggest benefit I provide my station is flexibility. In that morning meeting, my bosses know they can team me with a photog, or they also know they can save the photog for another assignment and send me out alone. Better yet, the photog and I can save time by grabbing separate elements in two different places and meet back up. Or worst case scenario, the photog is stuck with a live truck, but there's something down the road we need to get. I can get that and bring it back. One of the biggest criticisms for using one-man bands is a decrease in quality. Fair enough. It is not easy doing both jobs, but the reality is it can be done. You can get great shots. You can still do your interviews. You can even still be creative. I love FaceTime so much, I try and multiply it every chance I get.
I'm not gonna lie, being a one-man band is tough. You are doing the work of two people. You have to manage your time very differently. There's no more edit this while I do this. But it is possible. It can be fun, and it is very rewarding.
Awesome. So that video that he just made, he created all of it in less than 7 hours. Isn't that great? So I think he's really helpful too, especially for you guys who are learning, because like I think we watched this one in the last class where he breaks down what he does. He explains how you guys can do what he does. So he's a fantastic person for you guys to follow too. Here's one other Joe Little video I want you guys to watch, because it includes stand-ups that he's done. Every single year he does these stand-up reels. And if you want to be on air, when you go to apply for a TV job, they're going to say, okay, send me your reel. And really, you should be including your reel in the application or in the original email. But you're going to have a reel. And in later classes, like if you get into TV news, your teacher might require you to create a reel for part of your project because they want to prepare you to graduate. But you can start now in this class, start gathering things for your reel. And there are different types, not just reporter reels. So like, let's say you want to be a producer, shooter, editor. There are different types of reels. And if you want to get ahead, you're welcome to go and search the word reel, R-E-E-L, into our website. And there's a whole other lecture about reels that I teach in another class. But I just want to kind of start showing you what reporters do to get a job. You cut up little tiny pieces of your stand-ups and edit them back to back in a video. And this is how you apply for jobs. He does it every single day, so he has like 8-minute reels, like for every year. And this is just one from 2014, but you can go to his YouTube page or search Joe Little on our website, and you'll find other examples of his reels. So watch these and think about how can you do something like this in one of your projects coming up.
I'm news reporter Joe Little in South Bay, where this road is completely flooded, but it's what it's carrying downstream that's really dangerous. So guys, it looks like Joe Little pulled the short straw again, hanging out with 50,000 bees right now. I'm news reporter Joe Little at Imperial Beach with the latest invention that could revolutionize your local boardwalk. This is a very sleepy Chardonnay here. He's had a rough couple of weeks. 40,000 vehicles go through here every day, but they all have to stop when these arms come down. The crazy thing is, the Raglan Public House started with 60 of these cups. Now they're down to only 5. And the guy at the top of City Hall seems content to let the state of California ban these bags first. Well, that demand is finally here. Once the city adds this hotel, 2 more may be coming as well. Was it thrown away with this Christmas tree?
Christmas tree, we've got broken.
Christmas tree. It's just like in the NFL. The coach doesn't like a call on the field, he'll throw a red flag and ask for a replay. If he's wrong, he loses a timeout. But if he's right, he gets to keep it. Same thing here. If McCann or Padilla throw that red flag and ask for a recount and still lose, then they lose all that money. The folks living in the East County are so fed up with the folks running things from the coast that they're willing to cut themselves off here in Alpine and put a big sign saying, now entering Chaparral County. Take a look behind you. This looks like a used car lot for fire engines. It's the same thing as lighting up a pack of matches and throwing them in the grass, which I'm not going to do. I don't think 4-year-old Oakley here is happy to see me. He's clearly very mad at me.
We've been so worried about him.
He probably misses his owner, Sam Nguyen. He last saw her on Wednesday morning. The neighborhood was evacuated while she was at work. The bull terrier is her only child.
He's got to be starving and thirsty.
She called 10 News when deputies told her she couldn't get back into her Santa Leo Hills home. The Cocos fire was still a threat. Nguyen thought, maybe we could get him. The media has access to disaster areas like this. You want me to bring him some food? What do you want me to do?
Yes, just some turkey.
Now, I'm going to hopefully go in there and grab him and take him to his owner, and I'm going to try not to get mauled. I think this is a really bad idea. Just as I was trying to be a hero, real ones showed up. Sheriff's deputies were able to get Oakley to settle down a little. They gave him some water and some beef jerky. Are you guys on patrol or something? What are you guys doing? Patrol? But they were content to leave Oakley there. All right, I'm armed with. I wasn't. Turkey, 2 dog treats, and a leash. Come on, let's get in the car. Oh boy, come on. This is the first time in my career I've smuggled a dog out of an evacuation area. Okay, I go for a ride. You excited to see Mama? We got some turkey. I like turkey and I like a lot. Also food. Give me some food. Oh, okay, yes. Oakley was delivered safely to Nguyen, who was very happy to see him. A wagging tail and a final love tap from me, and Sam and Oakley are reunited.
Homes are replaceable. Lifetime.
So you see the lights behind me here? That is the San Ysidro port of entry. Well, Virginia, let's sort of absorb that first.
Okay, so oftentimes what you do in your reel is you'll do a ton of stand-ups and then you show a full-length package afterwards. So the last one we watched was just one of his full-length packages that he was excited to show everybody. So he's just fantastic at using wireless lav microphones so that he's not the person standing there with a microphone being boring and static and like not active. He specifically uses the lav microphone so you can still hear him when he's walking away from the camera and doing all these things. It kind of plays onto the audio lecture that we had last time. Like, audio really makes your stories. And he's fantastic at using a wireless lav microphone and thinking about like how he can gather things before he shoots it. So take time to watch the rest of it. And he also has like all of these other ones. He has tons. There's so much inspiration you guys can get off of watching these here. And please make sure that before you leave class today that you've followed him on Twitter, like him on Facebook, and send him a message, tell him that you watched him in class and be like him one day or something. In the last class we watched this, and I'll just show you this again. This is John Rogers. He's a local reporter for Channel 8, the NBC affiliate, and you can also do stand-up teases, and you can also include stand-up teases in your shows. So this is another thing that the reporters have to do, which is to promote their stories.
It was the biggest talker during the Olympics this weekend. What were those red splotches on Michael Phelps' arms? Well, the answer comes from cupping, and I'll show you how this technique works coming up.
So it's super short, but these stand-ups can be really great. And so when you're doing your packages, you can get extra credit. Like on the next project for your whip, think about, can you do a stand-up tease? That's another thing you could add to your reel, and it's another way to get more experience shooting stand-ups. Here's a video about my old reporter, Paul Mueller. So he's no longer with WFLA either, but when we were both working there, I did a live shot with him. And I picked this one because I wanted to show you that, like, as a reporter, somebody like Paul Mueller really puts everything he has into his stories. And sometimes you're going to be sent to something that's like, hey, there's a car crash, go cover it. And you may not be like, this isn't, you're like, the best story you've ever done. You know, it might not be the thing that you think is going to be this incredible story, but he makes it look wonderful, and he like makes it really look produced. It's big. He's so good at communicating that as a reporter, if you understand everybody else's role, it really helps. So he's had some experience already in TV, and that helped him communicate with me. So I'll show you this live shot, and just to kind of set the scene, this is about 8:30 p.m. This is the 8 p.m. show that I was producing, and I had already been in the booth for half an hour producing the show, and it's an hour-long show. And so during my show, while I was producing, he got sent to this breaking news, and we were communicating while I was doing other things. He was shooting video, he was sending it back, I was sending the helicopter, and we basically came up with a plan. And part of your job as a reporter is to be able to like keep all of this in your head or write notes on your phone and be able to be like on the spot and remembering everything. So he remembered like there's a helicopter over, and he knows that I said, okay, once you say let's go to the helicopter, then the directors will take the helicopter live shot. And he knows that when I say let's see that video we shot earlier, then we take the video we shot earlier. But he cannot see what we're airing on TV. That's an important part to know about reporters. They're out there confidently saying things, and they just have to put a lot of faith that the producer and the directors are doing what was planned. And in this case, it worked out really well. And at the end, he does a really good job of then showing, oh, I even took pictures on my phone, and he's just really engaging. So let's watch a little bit of this live shot from Paul Mueller.
Right now on News Channel 8 at 8.
We want to get you some breaking news right now in Hillsborough County. A driver lost control and drove off of Interstate 75 at Apollo Beach. That car then fell more than 100 feet down an embankment and right into the woods with 2 people inside.
News Channel 8's Paul Mueller was on that scene even before most of the first responders. Paul joins us now live at 8:30. Paul, what can you tell us? Are they okay?
Jen and Josh, as far as we know right now, they are okay. Conditions right now unknown, though we did see them coming out of the scene a lot. I want to just paint the picture for you. 7:30 to 9. These 2 women are driving down 75 South, trying to take this exit over here. It's 246 Big Bend Road. But take a look at that embankment that Josh was just talking about. And it's so dark you can't see that there are tire tracks there that go all the way, that's at least a good 75 yards, into that hole right there in the woods. And I actually went back there, and the car was about another 2 to 3 feet back in there. Eagle 8 HD, high above the scene right now, to give us a better look at where we are right now and how many first responders were on scene. Eagle 8 also can show us, you can see that tow truck right there. They've been here for about 20 minutes or so. The goal right now, let me see, you can see the 2 guys going back into the woods right now. That's going to be a tough job for them to get this car out of there. Now, I want to go ahead and show you some video that was taken just about 10 minutes after these women drove off into the woods right there. You can see one of the victims being taken out, and then a short time after that, the second victim, who was actually trapped inside the car for a good 5 to 7 minutes, she was taken out after that. And you have to keep in mind, we were actually here before the ambulance, so we tried to get back there to help as well. But more importantly, there were a lot of people out here who stopped their cars, saw what happened, and told me they had to do the right thing. And many of them ran down into that hole back there. They ran down there to try and save these women's lives. And again, this happening around 7:30 tonight. And right now, those 2 women were rushed off to area hospitals. Accident reconstruction team is here. What caused this? Well, at the time, Josh and Jen, the roadway, it was wet, and it's at the exact point where that car traveled down the embankment. That is right where you get off for the exit ramp. So a lot of questions remain right now as far as why this happened. But we did talk to a lot of people who stopped their cars and tried to rescue these women, and we'll have much more coming up tonight on News Channel 8 at 11, guys.
Yeah, that's one of the most surprising parts of that, because that's not a place you're going to see a lot of people, and your video showed a lot of people stopping there. So good to see there's a lot of good Samaritans out there willing to help.
All right.
Yeah, and Josh, let me just show you one thing really quick, because this is what is not here right now. Just bear with me for 1 second. And what I want to show you here, if you look there, you can see all of the first responders who are on scene. This was only about 15 minutes ago. So really, this was a real big team effort for not only the first responders, but for all of those people who saw this happen. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And just stopped to rescue these 2 women.
And good for you guys for stopping and trying to help out.
Okay, so this is just a good example of like a story that you might be on, but if you give everything to it, then as a reporter you could use that on your reel and then show somebody else who's trying to hire you at the next station, because most people don't stay at stations for super long. It's usually about like kind of building and going as you as where you go. So so Paul's actually at a different station now, but I just wanted to show you that one to give you a different idea of what reporters do. Does anybody have questions about any of that? Okay, so all of that was live. You have to know how to think on your feet. The next job is a meteorologist. So a meteorologist it's like the weatherman or the weatherwoman. They actually are responsible for a lot more than I think viewers realize. All of these graphics here, the weather people actually have to create these and build them, and they have a little clicker that they're using to like get to the next slide. And they are also almost like MMJs of weather. Like they really are responsible for everything. As a producer, I really don't write very much, if ever. I barely ever write anything for the anchors or for the weather people. They have to kind of make all of it up as they go along with information that they've gathered through research, and they are like educated in all of the terminology and weather and everything. But most of this is them ad-libbing. So you also have to be a good ad-libber if you're doing weather. And so like let's take Julie for example. She's a fantastic weather person. I love working with Julie because she's really good at timing. So if I say you have 3 minutes and 10 seconds, like she will go exactly 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Or if I say, hey, I know you were playing for 4 minutes, can you do it in 10 seconds? Or she'll like help me adjust my timing as a producer. And she's really great at not making anybody notice if anything's going wrong. So basically how she's standing is if we're looking at this is actually a green screen. All of that is a green screen, so she can't see what she's pointing at, but there's usually like a TV monitor over on this side of the stage that the viewers can't see, that she's looking at herself into another monitor to see like what she's pointing at as she's referencing to the camera. And so weather people are awesome. They get to stay inside a lot. Sometimes they have to go outside to do shoots, but for the most part, it's a pretty comfortable job.
Is there like a team behind them, or are they just doing it by themselves?
There is a weather team, but most of them are meteorologists. So like Julie Phillips, she used to work with Brian Bennett here, and Steve Jervy, he's another one. There's a few, like Ed Bloodsworth, and they're like all the meteorologists that work at WFLA. And she works on the evening shows. Sometimes she'll help Steve Jervy prepare his things, and they'll just help each other depending on the chief meteorologist who kind of is their manager and decides the workflow. But they really do a lot on their own. So like if they do it on the weekend, it's just them. It's just them doing for hours of news. So they're really like independent. Uh-huh.
Is it the same way for larger news stations? Because I know when I used to live in New York, we used to have this guy named Mike Woods, who was a meteorologist. And people just said like he was just like a good-looking guy, and he didn't really know what he was talking about. He just had like a lot. So like I'm saying, in small news stations, do you have to? Is it different?
Well, this is market number 11, so this is pretty big, and you still have to know, especially if as a meteorologist.
Right.
As a meteorologist, you really need to know what you're talking about. As an anchor, you can get pretty far and not have much of an idea of what's happening if you can just read the teleprompter. But most meteorologists need to be certified, like legally, like you have to like go through a whole process. Like I can't teach you guys if I didn't have a degree to teach you guys. Like I have a master's degree. I went to college. Like I had a bachelor's degree. I can't be teaching you guys if I don't even have those requirements. So it's similar when it comes to meteorologists. They are usually certified, and you can see what type of certification they have. It's usually on their lower third, so viewers know what level of like education they have. But that's very common for anchors who are old school. Some old school anchors are just there to read the teleprompter. And they've gotten good at that, but they don't necessarily research it or know anything. They just read what's in it. So they don't generally do much except for read the script. But for most meteorologists, they actually know what they're talking about, at least in my experience.
So with the reporters, were you actually being the producer, were you actually talking to them saying, all right, we're gonna ask you these questions and stuff like that, so that you didn't know, or was it just straight off the top of the page?
For Paul Mueller, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, cause I know it was about a scene, we're like, all right, so we're gonna ask you about this, we're gonna ask you about that, so just make sure that you have an answer ready for that.
Right.
So that you don't ask them something like,
You never want to ask your reporter something they don't know the answer to. So it's usually staged, kind of. So so the question answer is usually written out ahead of time. It's in the teleprompter. The anchors will read the question. The reporter knows what question is going to come at them, and they already have given me the answer.
I used to do something for the work group, and I used to cover the game afterwards, and they're like, all right, go cover the game. And talk about the game, and I was like, it was really all off the top of my head, and you can see it. I was like thinking as I was talking instead of like basically I didn't have it organized like talking about the first quarter, the second quarter, it was just bad. It was bad.
It's good to be able to ad lib, and so sometimes in breaking news you just ad lib. But especially for a lot of sports, like I did sports segments in a lot of my newscasts too, and in the studio, those are all scripted too. And then occasionally they would ad lib in between, but you have an idea of what you're talking about, and that makes you feel more confident to deliver it. And that helps with experience as you go. You become more of a natural on air, but it really helps to prepare. So as a producer, I'm like a hyper crazy control freak. I need to prepare everything. It has to all be scripted. And if you're gonna ad lib, I'm gonna give you 15 seconds, and then you're gonna ad lib about this. And like I really like to plan all of it out. But I think some reporters and like some sports anchors and stuff, they like to kind of ad lib sometimes. And that can work as long as you're ad libbing and you know exactly how many seconds to be quiet.
Last question.
No, you're good. Please ask.
Is he actually looking and talking about something? Like, is he like looking at the teleprompter?
He's looking right into the camera, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, he doesn't have monitors or anything out there. He's just looking at the cameraman, and he does have an IFB in his ear, so he can hear them, which is basically you dial in with your cell phone. When you get to a scene, you plug a little earpiece in, and the satellite coordinator, who we're going to look at here in a second, will patch you through, so they could hear me as a producer. I can get in their ear and say, "Hey, Paul, we're coming up in 30 seconds," and then he can hear the anchors talking back and forth to them. But we also communicate a lot via cell phone, so I would text him a lot, and that's all you have, really, a lot of the time. Not always, but a lot of the time, that's pretty standard.
That's amazing. He just flowed like that without. It didn't look like he was in his head. It looked like he was just flowing.
Right. Yeah, he's really good at that. That's why I wanted to show that as an example, because he talked the whole time without a script.
Going on around him.
Right. And he was able to remember, okay, she has the helicopter shot, she has the video, she has this stuff. So that's why as a producer, I love producing for somebody like Paul, because he follows our plan and just in his head. But you get good at remembering things. Like, it's like any exercise. If you're constantly lifting, I mean, your arms are going to get stronger, and the same thing with your mind. Like, if you're constantly doing something that's challenging, you're going to get better at it. So like that memorizing things or being able to ad lib, it gets easier as you do it, just because you get stronger in that area. But it takes practice, so you got to start sometime. So start now. Start now before you get on air, so that you can work through it before you get there. The next one that we just started talking about is sportscasters, sports anchors, sports reporters. Unfortunately, most news teams are kind of shrinking their sports departments, and that's kind of a nationwide thing. But most news stations do have at least a couple. Dan Lucas is the sports anchor at News Channel 8, and I asked him to record a video for you guys while I was working there, just to tell you like some advice and some things about what his life is like as a sports anchor.
Hi, I'm Dan Lucas. I do sports here at News Channel 8, and if you're interested in getting into the industry, I think it's a blast. It begins in sports, at least for a passion for sports, and writing as well. That's my first piece of advice. Write. I'm not talking about the English language and grammar. I mean, be creative, because no matter what you do, you're going to write long form, short form. We write the video all the time. Sometimes we don't say a word. The video says everything. That's the trick to learning this industry. Second, learn how to put on makeup, guys. I'm sorry. You don't put it on, you look like you just got out of jail. Max, Studio Fix. I'm an NW30 guy. But this job is feast or famine. Sometimes we come in here, it's an absolute blast. I love doing NFL games, the hockey games, the World Series, Stanley Cup, Super Bowls. It's a blast. Sometimes it is a drag. Too much work, not enough time, but that's a lot of industries. Nonetheless, it is still a lot of fun to get into. Learn how to write, learn how to do everything. And you're going to work all the time, but it is a blast.
Okay, so that's Dan. He is wonderful. He wants to help you guys, so please take advantage of the fact that he's right here in Tampa Bay, and he's a good one to look up to if you want to be in sports. The next one is news producing. So I'm not going to read all of this. It's very long. We have a whole other lecture just on producing. So I'm going to kind of just touch on a few of the things, and then we'll elaborate as we grow from, like, you know how we're starting with story forms, readers, VOs, VOSATs, and then eventually we're going to grow to full-blown producing newscasts. So the producer part is a little bit complex. Don't worry, we'll have a whole other day for that later on. But basically, I was a producer for a few years, and if you want to be a producer, here are some things that you want to be good at. Understanding the current events is really important, and then context, like why are the stories important? So that's news judgment. So having really good news judgment, which story is the lead and why? Being able to pick that immediately, having developed that instinct inside of you to know who cares, why do they care, let's go, well, let's move on. And so news producers are really like super fast paced. You have to be able to make like decisions like this and be able to really stand by those decisions. Writing, you have to be really good at writing scripts, teases, which is what we're going to learn in another lecture too. Headlines, you have to be good at spelling and grammar, although spell check can help you. So at least it's not a web producer because people aren't reading it except for your anchor, and so you don't want them to stumble over your words. Sometimes you'll be writing like lower thirds, or you'll be writing full screens, and then your audience will be looking at it. And if you have one letter misplaced, people will call you immediately and tell you during your show that you mess up. So you want to be careful with that. A really important part of being a producer is delegating tasks. That's huge. You have to be confident telling people what to do. That's a really big part of it. So like, I need to know how my editor's feeling that day. Are you tired? Are you hungover? Are you dealing with something emotional? Okay, I know this ahead of time, so I'm going to plan my day differently, and I'm going to maybe like use videos. I'm not going to have you do as much stuff that day just so that you can get done on time, or I'm going to have somebody help. You need to know when people are syncing. So like, how's my reporter doing? Is she going to make it there? If not, I need to make it back up. Like, I need to know how everyone's doing that day. If my director is having a hard day, I'm not going to make as many last minute changes. I'm going to try to do things that aren't going to affect their coding. You really have to adjust. How's my anchor feeling? Are they sick that day? How does their voice feel? So their script is going to be shorter. I'm going to give more script to the other anchor if we have a co-anchor, or I'm going to put more packages in. I'm going to put more sound bites in. You have to adjust to everybody because your job as a producer is to make everybody good at their job. Everybody needs to do their job in order for the newscast to be perfect. But what are the chances of like 15, 20 people all being perfect all at one day? It's not going to happen. So the producers really have to learn how to spot imperfections, hopefully before they make it to air, and stop them or prevent them from happening. Or once something goes wrong, you really have to be able to fix things, which means you have to understand everybody else's job. You really do need to know what people are up against so that you can not put them in a situation to fail. So it's important you know everything as a producer, which is fun if you are like me and really like doing everything, but it can be stressful. This is kind of like a generic producer pod. This is the one at WFLA, but usually the producers all sit together so that you can communicate ideas. Like, this is the 4 p.m. producer. What does she have in her show? You want to make sure that the 5 p.m. producer isn't going to repeat the same story. Or, hey, I found a story that's really good for your audience because that audience is a lot different than the audience she's working for because they're all different day parts. So you have to understand how to directly target your viewers, understand your lead-in, which is like what show is going to air right before your newscast and how are you going to try to draw those viewers in. It's going to be different for day parts. It's going to be different for different days of the week. I did a little interview with one of my old co-workers from WFLA. This is Daniel Woodrum. He's worked at WFLA for years and is one of the best writers I've ever worked with. Super clever, really funny. And if you ever get an opportunity to watch the 7 p.m. show on WFLA, most of the time, unless he's on vacation or sick, it's going to be Daniel producing it. And it's just one of my favorite newscasts because it's just fun, it's witty, it's fast-paced, and he's just a great writer. So here's what he had to say for you guys.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a producer here at News Channel 8. I've worked here for about 16 years now. And over the years, I started as an associate producer, which means I help do some writing, help the producers put together the show. Wasn't really in charge of anything. After a year or two of doing that, they started putting me in charge of some cut-ins, some shorter shows, and finally some full 30-minute shows. And after a while of doing that, they gave me promotion to become a producer. So what I do here now every day is put together our 7 o'clock newscast, which means I write most of the things that you hear the anchors say. I find the stories. I put them all in a rundown, so they're all in an appropriate order that makes sense. And I build a lot of the graphics that you see behind the anchor, the lower thirds that you see underneath the video. I build all of that stuff. And then I make sure that it's all put together so that it can air live and time out right. Won't be too long, won't be too short, won't be too serious, won't be too funny. Will be a nice balance that people will enjoy watching. And that's pretty much what I do every day here.
Okay, so Daniel's wonderful. He also used to be a teacher. So if you guys ever go intern there, make sure to go tell him I say hi. The next role is the director. So you guys have now been down to Florida Focus. You see the director, so I'm pushing the buttons. But when you get to a full-blown TV station, the job gets a lot more complex, which is why they have 5 million monitors in front of them. So this is the booth. These are the directors. This is the director. That's the technical director. And this is iNews and Ignite. Or excuse me, they use EMPS there. Sorry, this is a picture from WFLA. But either they'll use iNews or EMPS, which are content management systems, because they follow along with the rundown. They follow along with the scripts. I interviewed one of my friends, Mike Trelease, which is he's a fantastic director. I love producing newscasts when he's the director because he's just so good at communicating. So communicating is really important in every job that you have. But particularly the relationship a producer and director has is important because no matter how good the producer does ahead of time, if the director isn't doing what they have to do, the live show can fall apart pretty easily. And if the director is not able to really adjust quickly, it makes it hard to adjust for breaking news or help your timing if you have to delete different stories or change things. So I'll let Mike Trelease kind of tell you a little bit more about what a director does.
Stand by, key off the video, Josh, Mike, in 3, 2, 1, and key off, key Josh. My name is Mike Trelease, and I'm a director at WFLA. Basically, what my job entails is that all the shows that the producers put together, we code into an automated system called Ignite. And we're basically responsible for all the graphics in the show, all the video, all the camera angles. We block all the camera shots that the producer wants. We use the EMPS program, which all the producers stack their shows with. And we have pre-built codes that we've made. So depending on what the producer wants in their show, we'll put a code for it. And we'll import it into a rundown. And this system's like completely automated. We can do all the audio, everything. So all our coding that goes through our EMPS system goes through this system and just translates it. You know, everything that we do in the show, we're communicating everything to the producers, to the crew, to the anchors. I have communication with the anchors. I got a whole IFB panel. I can listen to all their mics.
everything we do as directors is so contingent upon how well the producers put the shows together. I really think that the producer is like the anchor of the show. If the producer puts their show together correctly, with all the graphics, everything in place, we can code everything correctly. We can step through it basically through all the automation that we have, and it makes the show a lot cleaner.
Okay, so that's what a director does. Does anybody have questions about that role? So the most important thing to know for the test, and also for real life, is the difference between a director and the news director, because those titles are so similar. So we'll kind of go through the rest of these quickly, but this is a big one, and I'll repeat this like 5 times. The director is the one inside the booth punching the newscast. The news director is the boss of the whole place who's going to hire you or fire you. So on the test, what's a news director? What's a director? Those are important. So if somebody says, "Hey, can you give this piece of paper to the news director?" or "Can you give this to the director?" and you go to the wrong person, like if you go tell the news director something that the director needs to know, you might not get a job. Like just because they see, okay, you clearly don't know how TV stations work. So those are the 2 big ones you want to be careful about, just because the titles are so similar, but they are completely different people, completely different responsibilities. So this is the director, and then we'll get down to news director here in a second. Satellite ENG coordinators, those are the ones who make sure that the TV feed goes out and gets into your TVs correctly, and that if you're live somewhere and you're using the TVUs, the live views, the satellite microwave, whatever you're using to get your live shot in, that they coordinate all of that and make sure that it's working so that we could do a live newscast. So my friend Linda will explain to you basically how TV stations actually work.
We work with producers and on live shots. So when crews, reporters, and photographers go out in the field, we tune in their live shots either through microwave, which is through a truck, or satellite, which is also through a truck, or TVU, which is now a little backpack that they take that goes through, uses actually cell service to get the shots in. So, so we get their shots in, we get their video in, we make sure their audio's good, they look good. If there's anything that needs to be conveyed to them, if the producer's busy, we let them know. We also work with Media General and NBC and CNN, and we share video and story ideas with them and send them scripts and video stories that may be of interest to other parts of Florida or the country or the world. So, what else do we do? We wrote videos in here. I think that's pretty much everything. We work with Capital News too, which is also it's a service that is out of Tallahassee, so we get coverage out of there. We make files and put them up. So that's pretty much it. We're kind of the import-export in this room. We take stuff in and we also send stuff out. So that's what we do. Good luck.
And what's your official title?
My official title is S&G ENG coordinator. S&G is like satellite news gathering, and ENG is electronic news gathering. So that's microwave, S&G is satellite. So you know the difference, like a microwave truck, microwaves to have a mast on it, and they transmit a signal to areas around the Tampa Bay area. We have receivers around the Tampa Bay area. Satellite trucks can go anywhere, and they beam up into the sky to the satellites in the sky, and then we have receivers down here that will downlink it. So that's the difference between the two. And then again, TVU is, it goes through your cell phone, a cell phone carrier. You can go through Wi-Fi and the Ethernet, those type of things is how we get those signals in. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, so the last few are a little bit faster. Floor director is the first job you're probably going to get if you're a production kid. So if you're in production and you want to work in TV production, floor director is usually the first thing. So you tell the news anchors, look at this camera, now look at this camera, you need to get up and go over there because your next thing is over there, you have 10 seconds left. You basically just communicate in person because oftentimes it's difficult to talk to people. Like I'm a producer and I can talk to your IFB, but you're reading a script, so I can't stop you from reading a script and tell you sometimes, or sometimes the IFB is not working. And so it's easy for a floor director to just do these things and like have all these signals to like tell you what to do and where to go. The camera operator is different than a videographer. So a camera operator operates cameras inside the studio. Sometimes you can operate many cameras at once. So it's kind of a new trend to have robotic cameras in TV studios. So at WFLA, for example, I think we have four or five robotics cameras in the studio, and you have one camera operator who's moving them, physically trucking them with wheels around the studio, moving them up, down, tilting, panning. Just one person doing that to all of them with a little joystick. So super fun, but very different life than a videographer who generally goes outside and then shoots events, shoots news stories. Some videographers also do like helicopter work. Please friend Paul Lamison on Facebook. He's the guy who decides if you get an internship at WFLA, and he's a really good videographer. The editors will usually spend their entire day in a tiny little edit bay that's super dark. It looks like this, and edit hundreds of pieces of video a day. So if I finish writing my BOSAT script and I check it off and they know that they're ready to go, they'll look at my BOSAT script, and if it's formatted properly, they can quickly edit my BOSAT in just a couple of seconds, and then push it to the control room where the director will hit play and the anchor will read it live. An assignment editor is somebody who listens to all of these police scanners. They listen to what's happening. So if there's an accident, if there's a emergency, if there's a shooting, if there's a school getting held hostage or whatever, you have to know all the codes. Like there's like a 1085 on the I-4 or whatever the codes are that I used to know back in the day because I used to be an assignment editor, and I cannot remember any of them anymore. But you can Google like radio scanner codes and you can have them all up. So you listen to that and find out when news is happening, you verify it, you do a lot of research, and you help disperse teams to wherever they need to go. Web producers will populate the newscast or the website with stories, with trending stories. They'll move things around depending on how their analytics are performing. They'll also do push notifications and social media. An executive producer is the boss of like basically everybody we just looked at. So there are usually 3 executive producers per news station. One is usually overnight, one is dayside, and one is evening. And they oversee like all of the newsroom staff. So a producer directly reports to an executive producer, and they make sure that they're looking at several newscasts as opposed to most producers should just be able to get in the weeds in their one newscast that day, if you're lucky. An assistant news director is kind of the executive producer's boss. Depending on the newsroom, your news director might decide that the assistant news director has a lot more to do with like administrative duties. So when I was an executive producer, I did a lot of hands-on stuff with the shows. But then I was promoted to an assistant news director, and I barely touched the content at all. I was really focused on the budgets, on revenue, on hiring, on communicating with other departments. The news director is in charge of the station. They'll hire you, they'll fire you, they'll get fired if the ratings are bad. Then their boss is the general manager, who generally oversees several TV stations. So the hierarchy kind of moves up this way. But now I've used up every moment of this class time. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, great.